Ever wondered how one man's mistake completely redrew the map of the world? It's a story of ambition, miscalculation, and a journey that changed history forever. This is the story of Christopher Columbus and the so-called discovery of America. Let's rewind to the 15th century. Europe was buzzing with the spice trade. Spices like cinnamon, cloves, and pepper from Asia were worth their weight in gold. But getting them was a huge challenge. The land routes, like the famous Silk Road, were long, dangerous, and controlled by rival empires. The sea route around Africa was also incredibly lengthy and perilous. European powers were desperately searching for a faster, safer way to reach the East Indies. Enter Christopher Columbus, a Genoese navigator with a bold, and what many considered a crazy, idea. At the time, most educated people knew the Earth was round, but no one really knew how big it was. Columbus, based on some flawed calculations, believed the Earth was much smaller than it actually is. He was convinced that by sailing west across the Atlantic, he could find a direct and speedy route to Asia. Imagine the sales pitch he had to make. 4 years, Columbus shopped his idea around the royal courts of Europe. He went to Portugal, Genoa, and Venice, but was rejected time and time again. Experts scoffed at his numbers. They told him the ocean was far too vast, that his crew would starve long before they saw land. But Columbus was persistent, driven by a deep conviction. Finally, he found patrons who were willing to take a massive gamble. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. Why did they say yes? Spain had just completed the Reconquista, unifying the country, and was eager to expand its influence and wealth. They were rivals with Portugal, which dominated the African sea route. Columbus's risky plan offered a potential shortcut to riches and glory. If it worked, Spain would hit the jackpot. So, in August 1492, with funding from the Spanish crown, Columbus set sail from the port of Palos. He commanded 3 small ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the flagship, the Santa Maria. The crew was a mix of seasoned sailors and nervous first-timers, venturing into a vast, unknown ocean they called the Sea of Darkness. The journey was anything but smooth. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, with no sign of land. The sailors grew restless and afraid. They were literally sailing off the edge of their known world. The food was spoiling, water was running low, and talk of mutiny filled the air. Columbus had to use all his skills as a leader, sometimes fudging the ship's log to make the distance traveled seem shorter, just to keep hope alive. Then, after more than 2 grueling months at sea, on October 12, 1492, a lookout aboard the Pinta shouted the words everyone was desperate to hear. Tierra! Tierra! Land. They had reached an island in what we now know as the Bahamas. Columbus, still believing he had reached the outskirts of Asia, named it San Salvador. When he went ashore, he didn't find the grand cities of Cathay or the spice markets of India. Instead, he encountered the indigenous Tano people. Columbus described them as gentle and peaceful, but his primary goal was still finding gold and a path to Asia. He called the native people Indians, a misnomer that has stuck for centuries, because he was convinced he was in the East Indies. Over the next few weeks, he explored other islands in the Caribbean, including Cuba and Hispaniola, the island that is now home to Haiti and the Dominican Republic. He found small amounts of gold, which was enough to convince him that great wealth was nearby. He also noted the potential for enslaving the native population, a dark foreshadowing of the colonization to come. Before heading back to Spain, disaster struck. The Santa Maria ran aground on Christmas Day and had to be abandoned. Columbus left about 40 of his men behind to establish a small settlement called La Navidad, the first European colony in the New World. He then sailed back to Spain on the Nina. His return was a triumph. He presented Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand with parrots, gold trinkets, and several captured Taino people. He was hailed as a hero who had found the western route to the Indies. The news spread like wildfire across Europe, sparking a wave of excitement and ambition. Columbus would make 3 more voyages to the Americas. He explored more of the Caribbean, reached the coast of South America, and established more colonies. But his time as a colonial governor was a disaster. His brutal treatment of the native populations and his poor administrative skills led to widespread rebellion and chaos. The paradise he had described turned into a place of immense suffering for the indigenous people, whose populations were decimated by European diseases, forced labor, and violence. Eventually, Columbus fell out of favor with the Spanish crown. He was arrested and brought back to Spain in chains after his third voyage. Although he was later freed, he never regained his former glory. He died in 1506, still insisting he had found a new route to Asia, never fully grasping the true scale of his discovery. So, did Columbus really discover America? The answer is complex. Of course, the continent was already home to millions of people with thriving civilizations and rich cultures. Vikings, led by Leif Erikson, had landed in North America nearly 500 years earlier. But Columbus's voyages were different. They initiated the first continuous, large-scale contact between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. This event, known as the Columbian Exchange, was one of the most significant turning points in human history. It was a massive transfer of plants, animals, culture, technology, ideas, and, tragically, diseases. From the Americas, Europe got potatoes, tomatoes, corn, chocolate, and tobacco, which transformed European diets and economies. From Europe, the Americas got wheat, sugar, coffee, horses, cattle, and pigs. But they also got smallpox, measles, and influenza, which wiped out an estimated 90% of the indigenous population. The legacy of Columbus is controversial, and for good reason. For centuries, he was celebrated as a heroic explorer and a visionary pioneer. But today, we also recognize the devastating impact his arrival had on the native peoples of the Americas. His story is a powerful reminder that history is often told from the perspective of the winners, and that exploration and discovery can have a dark side. It is a story that challenges us to look beyond the simple narrative of a hero finding a new world. It's a tale of scientific miscalculation, incredible bravery, ruthless ambition, and the unforeseen consequences that ripple through centuries. The world we live in today was profoundly shaped by that fateful voyage in 1492. What do you think? Was Columbus a hero, a villain, or something in between? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you found this journey into the past interesting, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you next time.